Welcome. This is Risk Profile. My name is Mark, and my co-host Harris and I are highlighting the entrepreneurial journey through conversations with people who have lived the tagline, Be Someone. Join us, and one day we will tell your story. Well, Harris, are you excited?
I am so excited.
Welcome to Risk Profile, everyone. We're super excited to introduce Chris Shepard of Houston restaurant Total fame on Risk Profile to talk about entrepreneurs, both in his primary restaurant and also his amazing charity, Southern Smoke.
He's won the James Beard Award, first chef in Houston in 22 years, which is very impressive. And I get drunk at his bar all the time. So I am a big fan of Chris Shepard.
as well as we all should. The whiskey there is amazing.
Thank you.
Is whiskey a big part of the game plan?
I mean, for me, I'm kind of a bourbon collector. So not so much when we say whiskey, I kind of stick to just bourbon. I don't want to get down into the Scotch. It's a rabbit hole that I'm not ready to venture into because I know myself too well.
Good.
As far as collecting goes, so pretty much keep it to one specific spirit.
Any favorites on the to get list?
So over the years, you start to see whiskey really become kind of a problematic thing to buy,
right,
if you will. For just every day, I like old granddad, but when you start to collect things, it gets harder and harder. So I always say that if you can find a liquor store or somewhere you buy and they do some single barrel stuff, that's what you should get because it's kind of a unique retrospective of what that whiskey is. So, I like our single barrel of Eagle Rare because when you talk about whiskey or bourbon specifically being blended, it could be 20 different barrels, but this is just one single barrel out of that profile. So I think when you get to people that some of the quality wholesalers around town, you start tasting their stuff, you'll tend to find what you like.
That's it's pretty exciting. Mm-hmm. So you are a Houston entrepreneur that started out with restaurants and talking about not only your restaurant, but also gathering inspiration from restaurants around the city. Yeah. You've been very vocal about supporting the efforts of others and highlighting what they're doing well. And as you then start to move into that next plateau as an entrepreneur yourself, you get an opportunity to reach out to the rest of the food industry that you love. Southern Smoke, how did that happen, and how did you know it had to be you?
I didn't actually. Southern Smoke was one of these things that we were doing. It kind of goes back to Underbelly when we had that restaurant, and Underbelly was built to highlight our city. It was built to show the things that people didn't understand because even Houstonians live on freeways a lot of the time. You get on, if you live in Katy and you're going to downtown, boy, you're on 10 and that's where you go. You get on, you get off. You're home. It's a totally different world. And so it was kind of what I wanted to show our city off through its food and its diversity. And so we had 50 photos on the wall of people and places that were very important to us throughout the city. And so we started doing these dinners called Off the Wall, where I would pull 2 or 3 of those people that had no real connection and doing a dinner with them. And so that they could start to learn other people kind of doing similar, like I would have a British curry house doing dinner with an actual British chef. And so and then we would do a course that was inspired by both of them, or a dim sum joint, and then Rice Box, who originally started off as a food truck.
Yep.
And we would do a dinner together, and so that they could actually have conversations, and I could introduce the people that have been so much important to me and have meant a lot to me over the years. And we would do these dinners to raise money for a culinary scholarship.
Yeah.
And the first year, I had a guest sommelier come in on Sundays because Matthew Pridgeon, who was our /general manager at the time, 2 young kids. So Sundays we did these when we were closed, and I wanted him to have those nights off or those days off to be with his family.
Sure.
So my friend Antonio Gianola, who's the wine buyer at Houston Wine Merchant, would come in and do the wines and do service for us. And after we put one person through college, he came to me and asked me if we were going to do that again. And I said I didn't really know because it was kind of hard to give the money away. It was like, just go to school, man. Work full-time and go to school full-time. I don't understand why we're having problems giving a full ride.
Right.
I was like, why? why do you want to do it? And he was like, can we do one dinner that focuses towards money for MS? And I was like, but what's the why?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I was diagnosed with MS this week.
Wow.
And
Whoa.
I just don't want people do not understand what MS is, and when folks that have MS traditionally don't speak about it,
Right.
And so nobody knows to check on them.
Yeah.
And he goes, I always want people to ask me. He's like, I basically want to be like the poster child for it, and like awareness of, hey man, just ask me how I'm doing, and like make sure I'm getting through this okay, because without having a cure, it's kind of devastating.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, just hold up, man. Let me figure out how we're going to do this. Because I don't think one dinner that's going to raise $5,000 or $10,000 really makes an impact on what we want to do.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we thought of everything. And finally, I was driving to Austin, and I was like, you know what? Let's just call some friends. Let's do a Texas for South Carolina dinner. And I'll call Aaron Franklin up and Sean Brock and Rodney Scott. And I was like, we got Aaron, who is the brisket master. We got Rodney, who is whole hog. And you got Sean, who is very much low country in South Carolina at the time, and myself. And I texted everybody, and everybody immediately said, yes, let's go. And so then it went from a dinner to a backyard, like out in the back parking lot event. And so I went to the city department of special events and asked them to close off the sidewalks because somebody was complaining a lot at that point about us valeting on the sidewalk. And it wasn't, whatever, anyway. So I was just going to shut it all off just to make it easy. And they were like, what are you doing? I told them. They're like, oh, no. We're going to block off all the streets.
Yeah.
We're going to give you the stage so that you can have music. We're going to have all these people that can come in and help you with, the fencing, the setup, the breakdown, everything. And I was like, so we're doing a festival. And so I had to call all the guys. I was like, hey, look, so that 200 people, can we do 1,000? Maybe 1,200? And everybody immediately, yes. So that first year, I wanted to raise $100,000 for the MS Society, and everybody said, please don't say that because you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, we don't know what we're doing.
Right.
And at the end, we wrote a check to the MS Society for $181,000.
Yay.
Wow, nice.
And so year 2, same thing, MS Foundation, we raised $284 that next year. Started bringing chefs in from all over, and then year 3, having chefs come in, and we're about a month and a half out.
Yeah.
2 months almost, and Hurricane Harvey came through.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so I started having people text me, chefs from around the country, like, how do I help your staff? How do I help people in the industry? And I was like, there's really no way. I mean, what do we have? We have the Mayor's Fund, we have the Red Cross, we have J.J. Watt's Fund, but not one thing is specifically going to target hospitality workers.
Sure.
And of the such. And so we figured out a way with Legacy Community Health next door, and with our 501c3, that we could take in applications and write checks, and so it became this whole thing. So we set up the fund where you could apply online in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. I said, I don't care if you're a dishwasher, a drive-through employee, you stock the milk, you plant the carrots, you bust the table, you cook, you own a restaurant. I don't care, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. Just apply. And we took in a little over 200 applications, but we were able to grant 139 families $500,000 that first year.
Bravo.
It's amazing.
And so it made us realize that that needed to be a full-time thing.
Sure.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And since then, I mean, I go back to a year ago now, we had one employee, and we were hiring our second employee. And I was even like, you sure about this? Like, do we have the funds to be hiring 2 full-time people?
Yeah.
And now I think we're at 40. Yeah. Oh, well, we have 10 full-time and then probably 20 or 30 on contract.
That's amazing.
Because, I mean, we went from, as soon as COVID came through, we changed, and we hired 40 folks that were on furlough or had been laid off to take and become caseworkers.
Right.
A lot of those folks, fortunately, have gone back to work. Some are still on contract. But the goal is for those people that are on contract to eventually get back into their restaurants.
Wow.
Because some are in Chicago, some are here. But we have 10 full-time people now. But since COVID started, I tended to go back to that 200 number of applications that we took in. We're now over 34,000. And we, since March, have been able to grant I think it's over 2,600 families, roughly $4.5 million.
Jeez.
Nice.
So
That's
it's making its impact right now, and that's what it needs to do.
Do you feel that momentum just kind of pulling it, just pulling you forward?
Yeah, I said let's not put the cart in front of the horse.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we put like 7 carts in front of a pony.
Yeah.
and now we're catching back up, which
Yeah.
is good. I mean, we've got people that are in, that talk to corporations directly about
Right.
sponsorships and funds, and so
Yeah.
we're doing all the things that we should be. In June, we started working with Mental Health America and the University of Houston. We provide free mental health care for everybody in the hospitality industry in the state of Texas and their children.
That's amazing.
wow.
So, of course, it's on a long wait list. And now my next goal is to get other universities in the state of Texas involved to help with that battle, because I think that's a very important fight that we need to be on.
So recently, you guys got some really good press. Southern Smoke got some really good press on TV with one of your friends.
Yeah, so David Chang.
David Chang, yes.
So when Harvey came through, Dave's always been a big supporter of the city. We've filmed a few shows here together, talking about Houston. But he wanted to make an impact in the city, so he came and cooked at Southern Smoke the year of Harvey, and then we've talked about Southern Smoke over the years. And he was asked to be on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the celebrity edition. He wanted to make an impact in the community and make an impact in our industry, so he chose Southern Smoke as his beneficiary.
Yeah.
And so, I found out in probably September. We had just got done filming a Zoom at my house, and they're like, Dave's on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. And I was like, am I a lifeline? Please let me tell them I'm a lifeline. And Lizzie looks at me and she said, well, they asked for our bank account, so we're the beneficiary. We don't know what he's won, but it doesn't really matter, because anything that is even if it was $100, whatever, it still brings awareness to the organization.
Right.
Sure.
And so since then, a lot of things have changed, and it really brought the awareness that we needed.
Yeah.
It definitely brought in a lot more applications, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But that's good for us, because I don't want to hold on to money. I want it to come in and I want it to go out.
Sure.
We want to be the people that can just help.
Yeah.
Right.
And it brought awareness to Chicago. Chicago was kind of a hard spot for us. We had somebody in August come in and a private, I still don't know who it is, give us $4 million for the city of Chicago.
Wow.
For coffee, restaurant, and bar employees. And if the city could match $1 million, then they would match another $1 million. So it could be a $6 million fund specifically for that city. And it took a long time for Southern Smoke for people to understand what that was.
Sure.
So it got people to understand that we're just trying to give you money.
Right.
At the end of the day, I'm trying to pay your bills. That's it.
Yeah.
And so that really helped with that too.
That's fascinating. Do you think? Are you hoping that this kind of idea starts to catch on and maybe cities across the country replicate that model, or in terms of the matching? Southern Smoke gives X and a city gives Y.
I mean, we can set up foundations in any city, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're already set up to be able to do it. Little did we know that in 2017 that's where we were going.
Yeah.
By any means, never thought.
Yeah.
Never ever thought. And I'm just thankful that it is there. Food and Wine Magazine has come on as our literary sponsor, I guess, if you would, or publication. I mean, they talk about it every month. And so, the hope is that we won't ever really be needed.
Yeah.
But we're there if you do, right? And I know that at this point, even through COVID, when this is over, there's still going to be a lot of struggle. There's still a lot of things that we have to help take care of. We're nowhere near to being close to being over. And fortunately, now we see other companies come on board. Yeti has become on as a sponsor, and Hot Luck, our good friend Aaron Franklin, who he does his festival every year in Austin, is now a Southern Smoke party.
Awesome.
So it just takes a little bit of those things every time.
Yeah.
So
this might be a good point to ask a little bit about in making the jump from Houston focused kind of food charity through through Southern Smoke to expand that network, you're also working on the parallel side with some of the government affairs groups to highlight the needs of the restaurant industry as well. Are those two things related? Did one kind of spawn the other?
No, actually, they're not related, but they are absolutely intertwined.
Yeah.
Because if there is funding, I work with the Independent Restaurant Coalition to try and get a fund set up for independent, small, mom pop run restaurants. PPP is fine, but anybody under the sun can get into that fund, and there's not a specific fund set up solely for restaurants. And so if we can get restaurants funded, then I won't see as much need for Southern Smoke. Right. And I think that when I talk to people, they don't really get that.
Yeah.
When I talk to our representatives and I'm like, look, I can see both sides of this. I see the direct impact of what financial assistance can give.
Right.
And they're starting to see it. It's a little bit too long, in my opinion, too late. Because you talk about PPP, especially that first round, it was a 10-week solution to a 1-year problem at this point. And that didn't really help, because even at this point in our lives, there is such, I would say, I'm not going to say I wish people would go out to eat more. That's not the case, right? Because I totally understand why people don't.
Sure.
Right? I get it. But there is a set of takeout fatigue.
Yeah.
Right? I think we all have it. We all get the same thing every time.
Yeah.
Tuesdays, okay, let's get this. You kind of know, right?
Right, yeah.
And so you're not willing to go out and branch out and try new things as much, take Georgia James. Why would you get it's hard to get a ribeye to go, it's you're more apt to get
way
chicken
more
wings,
delicious
right?
in the restaurant.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You'd rather be there. Yes.
But the dishwashers and the prep cooks don't understand that.
Yeah.
So that's even the hostess or the bartenders, it doesn't really affect them. So we need to be able to fund and take care of those employees,
Right.
and not just our restaurants, right? When this whole new round of PPP came out, I'm calling and emailing every one of the small little mom and pop restaurants, London Sizzler, Crawfish Noodles, Saigon Pack, here's all the info. Go to your bankers now.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're not going to know.
Right.
And that's the problem, is that PPP is good for, I have an oil and gas company that I was down 25%. Well, that's great. Or whatever company, If you're down, you can apply for it. But there's not something specifically set for restaurants, which I think is, when you can bail out, the airline industry that's 75,000 people,
Sure.
but you can't give a specific fund to a 11 million person, industry. That makes no sense.
Just kind of thinking through those, understanding the power of direct giving in a time of need to an individual, and having those experiences. Is there a story that you think just absolutely captures what you're really what really happens for that individual or for that situation? That
through Southern Smoke?
Through Southern Smoke.
Well, we're so fast about it.
Yeah.
That's the key thing. It's not the easiest application to put through.
Sure.
But it doesn't really. It requires a lot, but it definitely what is your need? We need to know that. I don't do that because I would just give everybody everything, and that's just me personally.
Yeah.
And we're keeping people medically safe. We're keeping their families with the proper medicines and food that they need, with a roof over their head. Over Thanksgiving, I know there was 2 circumstances where our awards committee had to work the week of that night on Thanksgiving night to make sure that people could pay their rent so they would not be living out of a car the next day.
Wow.
So because we do everything in what do they call it? ACH. Where it's direct deposit to you.
Right.
That's how we work. There's not a lot of red tape that's tied up with us. And so we can get traditionally assistance to people in a time of crisis really quickly.
That's amazing.
And, we don't have a set number, right? It's anywhere from $100 to, we helped a kid out with brain trauma for $100,000.
Yeah.
So we can pretty much all over the board. But 2,000 is traditionally what we give, and we don't pay the bill for you.
Right.
We give you the cash so that you can make that decision on how it's best served for you.
Yeah. Right. Intermixing all of these paths, which for most people would be like a full-time dedicated, part of their life. You've got, obviously a growing restaurant group here in Houston that is not only kind of changed the way maybe food is done in a lot of senses here, but also working with other restaurants and beginning to grow that. You've got Southern Smoke, which is growing and has its own momentum. You've got the work with the IRC on the government and making them aware of what it's really like to be a restaurant worker in COVID America, and you've got a whole line of post-COVID pivots that you've walked into. Walk through what was that like? How did you go through the problem-solving process of figuring out how to keep things going?
Whiskey.
I was going to ask, are you even getting enough sleep right now?
No. You know what? I tell you that I have such a great team.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing is and the ability for our team to grow and to do things that may seem unorthodox at times, but we all talk through things and make sure that there's a point of why we do it.
Yeah.
And some things aren't the best examples. Like I know after Harvey, I make mistakes. I tried to start a sandwich company that would deliver, and that just wasn't very well thought out. And
yeah.
It was just something, and so everybody's like, "Don't do the sandwich company again, man." And it's like, yeah, I get it, but we all are, we see a problem, and it's like, well, let's just fix it. Let's go, right? And I think that if you can't look at something right now and see the future and that how bright it's going to be, then you're way behind.
Right.
Right. If you can't see that when we get through this, Houstonians love to go out.
Yes.
Right. And most of people have been stuck for a year almost in their homes or not doing anything and not being social people. And even before, Houston was the most eating out country in the eating out city in the country.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's gonna be like the Roaring 20s, when we're all safe. And so, and that's the goal is to try and make things understand where we're at,
right?
But make things for the future that are gonna work. So, a lot of these ideas were just sitting on the back porch, because when we first closed the restaurants, we were doing to go out of them, and then we cut them all back, and then we started working with HEB, and we did 2 teams. We had 4 days on, 4 days off, just to kind of keep everybody separate. And those 4 days off of sitting on the back porch, well, how do we do this now?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
1 or 2 bourbons in me, and I'm like, how do we do private parties again? And so it's you figure these things out.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you're not willing to listen, you're kind of behind.
It's been a huge deal for our family. My daughter's taken your biscuit making class, and she's benefited the entire family with her newfound knowledge. My wife, my wife and I been able to attend a couple of the events at your restaurant. But I think one of the stories that we went to fairly early on, as you were first opening Georgia James, you had a permitting issue that delayed the opening of the restaurant. And while you're there, you're dry aging steaks, and I got the opportunity to taste one of your 110, 120, 130 day old ribeyes, and it was amazing. So not every whether you still do those or keep a couple in the back cooler just for a special request, I don't know, but it was special.
It happens. We try to keep it around 60, and that was always the goal.
Yeah.
It's kind of our sweet spot, because I remember those 110s. You lost a lot of the spinalis, and it was funky. And, and then I see these guys that are doing 300-day dry aged strip loins, and I'm like,
whoa,
you're eating a shoe, man. What does that even taste like? So I just, that funk factor at 120 was, we had some strips that were 160.
Yeah.
And I was like, nope.
Yeah.
Nope. But let's, and so now we try and do things what does it taste like if you take the entire bone-in rib and rub it in fat,
Right.
and let it age in its own fat for a while. Like, we haven't been doing so much of that now. Like right now it's like, keep it lean.
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't want a lot of just cost sitting around. If
Sure.
it doesn't work, that's expensive. But if it didn't work before, it was like,
Yeah.
we'll make it fun. We'll figure it out, And so, but, it's always trying to do something new and try and push it a little bit further than anybody else.
So when the pandemic hit, a lot of restaurants started shutting down, furloughing people. They've just generally contracted. And how did you initially handle the pandemic?
It's funny. I was doing an event in Switzerland at the end of February, and like seeing the signs in the airports, I was like, "Oh man!" Like, I don't really know what we're getting into, but I could kind of see what was happening because, like, they're like, that city in Italy that got shut down? I'm like, yeah. They're like, that's like 30 minutes from here. I was like, I'm going that way. And fortunately, it's like literally we were going that way that day and got back on a plane and came back. And like we had a meeting with our managers and it was like, all right, so I don't know what we're going to do. And then we started talking more and more. And then like someone brought up the word furlough, and I was like, I don't even know what that is.
Wow.
Right? I've heard about it for the airline industry, but never for like our industry. And I had our attorneys over, and I had our insurance people over at the house, and we're talking about it. And like, they're going through all of like, how does this affect? Like, we pay massive amounts of insurance,
Sure.
but not for
The
this.
pandemic,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, which is like, so we're still trying to figure that out. But we sat down as managers, and everybody's like, well, I'll cut it back, and like we'll have to furlough. And then like the next day, bam.
Yeah.
Like, the mayor's department came out and said, this is what's happening. And I knew Lena Hildalgo called me out of the blue. I was like, I don't even know how she got my number, but
Yeah.
she's like, hey, we're doing this just so you know. I was like, yep, great, thanks. Like, but what are we going to do?
Yeah.
So we did. We went around and furloughed everybody except for management. And, we brought some people back to help with the HEB production.
Yeah.
And then when PPP, we first got it, it was, you had to use it in 8 weeks, 10 weeks. 10 weeks, I forgot what it was. But I brought everybody back.
That's that sounds unique. I don't think, is that what most people did?
No.
I don't think so. But I didn't feel that one person should make money while another doesn't.
Yeah.
And so if I can pay all my staff, I'm going to take it, and we're going to pay everybody. Like, some people could be on unemployment, some people couldn't. But like, I'm going to make sure that we pay everybody.
Right.
And looking back on it, I think I would probably do it differently, because especially when they're like, okay, you can have 24 weeks. And I was like, today is the last day for me.
Yeah.
So I have used everything.
Yeah.
So at that point, like, I couldn't change it. So it didn't really matter to me. But I think that I think a lot of people did pretty well just on like the unemployment with the extra kick-ins and things like that. And I probably would have let them stay on that. And then if I would have had my choice to bring some people back and some people not, I probably would have done it that way. But you know what? There's no playbook for this. And so I just felt that at that time, everybody needed a paycheck.
Yeah.
Right.
And I couldn't stand my staff not knowing how they were going to pay their rent or feed their family. So I made that decision.
Yeah.
And I'll stand by it, and I'd do it again probably.
Yeah.
If it came to that, like understanding that better.
Yeah.
If I had that same scenario where I didn't know, I would still pay everybody.
Yeah.
Like, and not just to get them taken care of.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like, man, the restaurants may fail.
Yeah.
But I can always come back from that. They don't have that opportunity in a job, right? They'd have to go look for another job in a market where nobody's hiring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So let's fight as hard as we can to make sure that they don't have to worry about that. I know that we went from 225 employees to about 150 right now.
Wow.
And a lot of it is, but they just found different things to do. Like, they're like, I'm gonna go do woodworking.
Yeah.
Like, okay, like,
All right.
or they just found other industries to get into, understanding that the restaurant industry is so. I mean, it really was. We found out how fragile of an egg it was.
Yeah.
And so we had to figure out how to fix that. And I think what we're doing now is the way that we should do it.
Yeah.
Right. Diversifying ourselves into different models and different like industry, if you would. But
So speaking of diversifying, one of the things that you've mentioned is this partnership with HEB.
Mm-hmm.
How does that look? What is that?
It literally saved us. They called me right out of the blue. Well, we started doing the to-goes, like we call them take and bakes. Right?
Sure.
And we just make meals and sell them out of the butcher shop because we were selling, all of our meats that we could butcher in-house out of the butcher shop, and, like, to-go food, hot food. And I realized that, like, you're going to sell a burger once a week to somebody, but if you can give them meals that they can put in the oven for their kids, you'll sell 20.
Yeah. Right.
Right. And so I looked at Victoria, who does the purchasing. I was like, I'm going to need a couple of pallets of those little to-go things. However many you can get, just get them. And so we literally had them stocked in the dining room. And then we got the call from HEB, and they said, hey, do you want to do – we can't keep up.
Yeah.
Can you help us?
Oh, wow.
And it was like, yeah. And like they just wanted to give their guests something else, right? And so we were kind of one of the first ones to go in there and figure out how to get it done with delivering.
Yeah.
Like, we had a seafood company deliver all of our stuff for us because there was no way that we could send our staff out and like with coolers and like, and that's what a lot of people did because there's like 4 other restaurants or 5 other restaurants that did that at the same time. But now we realized we couldn't do it in our dining rooms anymore because we needed to open our dining rooms. So we built a catering facility, commissary kitchen, which now is they have since HEB has since withdrawn on a lot of those things, but we are building it back with them to go into it full time.
Wow.
So when we were just doing 10 stores, I think we're supposedly to come February 1st, we're supposed to be in 20, and then we'll go into 40.
Wow.
And they deliver for us. So.
Wow. Love that scale. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah. And so like one of the other restaurants can't really do it. So we're talking to them about co-packing for them, and so now we started a co-packing business.
Why not? Just stack it on top.
Well, I mean,
just another pivot. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So, and in that facility, now we're building a studio out, so hopefully I don't have to use my house as a, Zoom call place. We can actually have a studio where we can film in, and so it's interesting. We're trying to get it all done. You see different avenues, and you got to go for it.
So you've unearthed all of these different things.
Started a sausage company too, but that's another one.
Yeah.
You've unearthed all of these different things. Do you start with focusing on just a handful of them a week? Do you do everything every day? Do you do what comes up when you need to answer it, and rely on your team? Like what's your flow?
I rely a lot on the team.
Yeah.
I definitely have people that tell me what to do on a daily basis. They're like, this is what needs to get done, and then we try and figure out everything else. So, but there's, we have a good, Victoria who kind of manages my life now.
Right.
And Lindsay who does PR, and I'm married to. She's, between. It's like there's a whole team of people that just kind of like focus into the areas that need to be focused into.
Yeah. That's amazing. So we are a show of entrepreneurs, and an entrepreneur that's sitting here listening to the podcast, watching online, thinking to themselves, do I have it in me to get something going, or maybe in the middle of something needing a little bit of encouragement? What do you say to those people?
Yeah, it's really easy. I mean, it sounds really easy, but you want to get the wave going, right? You get on that wave, you get your wave of business going. But if you're not willing to stand at the side of the water and jam your foot into it, it's never going to start.
Yeah.
So it's just legitimately you have to do it, and it has to take your ambition and drive to do it. And it literally is that easy. If you're not willing to stand on the side of the still water and jam your damn foot into the water, that wave will never start.
Yeah. And
so it's just taking that effort and thought and belief in yourself and to do it. I was on a conversation the other night with somebody who just became the winemaker at her family's winery, and she's like super nervous about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, it's kind of a statement that I believe in. It's like have confidence and whoop its ass.
Yeah.
Right? That's all it takes,
Yeah.
right? If you can have confidence in yourself, that's all you really need.
Yeah.
Right? I don't care what anybody else will think about me, but as long as I have the confidence and like I'm old, and like my cooks are way better than I am at this point, but they do not think they are.
Yeah.
Because I won't let them think that. I'll cook circles around you.
Yeah.
I'm old now to say there ain't no way I can work service for a week, but they don't think that I can't.
Yeah.
And so it's and that's just confidence, and that just you just have to build that. And so once you can believe that in yourself, it comes forward.
So one of the things that happened was you guys initially had to contract a little like everyone else, and then we're very fortunate with all these partnerships and all these ways that you guys have pivoted. You guys are still expanding now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about this new project that's...
As a group, we're hustlers. Underbelly Hospitality is a group of hustlers. And if you don't hustle, man, so this thing goes, right?
Yeah.
But you got to see opportunity in everything, right? And I have to look at real estate totally different. I have to look at partnerships and like how we do things. Like I have an amazing business partner that's just like, let's go, and I'm like, hey man. Every once in a while, we got to sit down and be like, okay, let's scratch this off the list because I don't have it in me, right? And so, like, understanding your abilities and how far you can go, and then just teeter there.
Yeah.
Right? Don't do way too much. Don't do not enough, right? Find that space and teeter on that where it's, like, questionable all the time, but you'll do it.
Yeah.
The only thing... I am a big believer that if you just say, I think I can do it, well, you already lost.
Yeah.
Because think is just like giving yourself an out.
They're only do.
You have to do it.
I'm gonna do it. Yeah.
I will do this. We will do this. And we will do it the way that's supposed to be done. But if you sit back and like, I think I can do this. No, you already failed.
Yeah.
Just stop. Right? Confidence again. We go back with that. But having the realization, like right now, as we start to move out of, or as we start to progress through this, we can see how business is going to be, and understanding like, hey man, that high rent that I used to be able to pay, ain't happening.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It just is not going to happen, right? Because none of us figured like that. Hey, I'm gonna run all my business models on 50%.
Yeah.
And 50% is at best.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. So 50% of shit is still 50% of shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so you have to like understand that maybe we're going to do 30%, maybe we're going to do 35%. So that 100% of what I could have paid my rent on, I can't do that anymore.
Right.
So the way I work my deals is way different.
Yeah.
So and understanding that has to be understood. You have to think through that a little bit differently and look at better opportunities, like us going in downtown.
Yeah.
If we were just going into a 45 or 50 seat restaurant,
Right.
I would have questioned that.
Yeah.
Right. But understanding now that I can take over, like I can work myself and our group into all aspects of this building. And
this
then
is Market Square
beyond.
Tower.
Yeah,
where
Market
Coterie used
Square
to be.
Tower.
Mhm.
So now it's a totally different business model.
It's a totally
than
different
before.
business model.
Yeah.
I look at it as a hotel.
Okay. Interesting.
I look at it as I can handle room service. I look at it as we can do a second bar upstairs where it's just residents only.
Right.
Even if like then I'm standing up there last week and I was like, and this is where people are like, hey, hold up. Right. I look at it and I'm like, man, how do I, and this, you're going to have to work through this in my own head, right?
Yeah.
In my head, right? Because I'm standing there in a lounge on the 42nd floor where we're doing cocktail service at, right? For the residents. And we're going to do a little bit of food. And I'm looking around and I'm like, this would be a pretty cool restaurant. It's gold. It's gold and black. And it looks like Georgia James.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's when I first walked through the building. I was like, oh, this is really cool. We can do some cool stuff up here. And then I'm talking to my beverage director who's working the bar. I was like, hey, man, what happens when the theater's going?
Yeah.
Right? We're blocked from the theater. And all of a sudden we're booked up. How do we get our tenants and the residents, I shouldn't say tenants, but the residents, the ability and access to come downstairs and eat in their own home? We're telling them that we want to be an extension of their home.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't want to get just to go.
Yeah.
And he's like, I don't know. And I was like, I'll turn this into another restaurant.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, we'll just set it like a restaurant. The food comes from downstairs, but we can
I
have
love
a
it.
full beverage service. We can have full, staff service. We can just like bring the food straight up.
Yeah.
And they can have their own private restaurant. And he's
Nice.
like, oh man. And I was like, we have to work through the logistics of that, but we legit can do that.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I was like, we just turned a 70-seat restaurant into like a 180-seat restaurant.
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Amazing.
And so in the kitchen, I mean, these 3 chairs are bigger than the kitchen. So
Yeah.
we just have to figure like the biggest I shouldn't say problem, but the biggest challenge for that is understanding how to manipulate the menu to work for you in
Right.
that small setting, because there's 6 burners, a plancha, and a wood burning oven. That's it.
That's amazing.
Wow.
So, how do people find out about Southern Smoke? How do they donate? How do they reach out to somebody in your group to ask?
SouthernSmoke.org.
Yeah.
We have a whole team there. Our executive director is Catherine Lott, and man, she runs it right.
Yeah.
But that SouthernSmoke.org is kind of where everything is laid out for you. You can also get there through the Underbelly Hospitality website. But yeah.
All right. Well, this has been Risk Profile. Harris, how do they find us?
You can find us on LinkedIn. Please follow us. And subscribe to the podcast. Leave a review. We do read all of them.
Yes.
We do like reading all of them, especially if they're funny. You can also email me and Mark at riskprofile.us, and you can email me at harris@riskprofile.us. And we look forward to hearing more from you guys. And once again, thank you, Chris Shepard, for coming onto this podcast. If you want to follow Chris, you can follow him on all platforms. He has a great book called Cook Like a Local. Visit his restaurants. They're awesome. If you want to get drunk at one of them, call me. And thank you for listening. This has been Risk Profile. Be someone.
Be someone, guys.